Hello everyone! Today we're gonna take a trip to Kentucky and talk about some ghost stories of Waverly Hills Sanatorium that have come from paranormal explorers. Let's get into it. Our first story comes from TikTok, user JC Penny Dreadful, and this is where they tell the story of an apparition that might be linked to a past employee of the sanatorium. In 1966, the caretaker of the tuberculosis sanatorium was murdered in his home by a patient, but his ghost may still remain on site. The body of Jimmy, a beloved member of staff at the sanatorium, was discovered on June 27, 1966, by another worker who had come to check on him when he failed to show up for work. He had been stabbed several times with one of his own wrenches. It was found near his home not far from the sanatorium, and the patient responsible for his death, a Mr. Edwards, was arrested the same day after a manhunt. Despite the fact that Edwards had confessed to the crime and the evidence against him was overwhelming, he was somehow declared innocent by reason of insanity and sentenced to spend the rest of his life confined to a mental institution. However, Edwards would die just 3 years later after suffering from schizophrenia and having visions of demons. To this day, staff and visitors alike report seeing the ghost of Jimmy around the sanatorium, often in the exact spot where his body was discovered all those years ago. People claim that this ghost has even made physical contact with them too, including one young girl who reported feeling a tap on her shoulder while walking through the building. She turned around and saw no one there. Then she felt a second tap, like someone was trying to get her attention. She turned again, but still there was no one there. And if that wasn't enough, she then felt something cold brush against her neck, like the chilling touch of a hand. Our next story comes from user Lauren Elizabeth, 1994, and this is where they tell the story of a ghost dog seen at the sanatorium. Many people have witnessed a ghostly German shepherd roaming the halls of Waverly Hills Sanatorium, sniffing at their legs and seemingly searching for something. Some say he can even be heard barking in the dead of night. It's believed this dog was abandoned at the sanatorium when it closed, and he either died or disappeared before he could be adopted out with his owner. Our next story comes from user Ghost Adventures, and this is where they tell the story of the shadow people seen in one of the sanatorium's tunnels. While investigating the tunnels beneath the former Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, members of the paranormal investigation team encountered some unexplainable phenomena. As they were exploring the labyrinth of underground passages, their devices began to pick up strange electromagnetic field readings, indicating the presence of an unseen energy. Then out of the corner of their eyes, they caught glimpses of dark figures darting between the tunnels. These so-called shadow people seemed to be watching their every move and made them feel uneasy. One investigator even reported hearing disembodied whispers echoing through the darkness, as though someone were trying to communicate with them. Despite their efforts to make contact, the team was never able to get a clear reading or determine the source of the whispers. As they continued to explore the tunnels, they began to feel an overwhelming sense of dread and fear, prompting them to flee for safety. To this day, visitors and staff alike have reported seeing shadow figures and feeling an oppressive atmosphere while visiting the sanatorium's tunnels. Our next story comes from user Dark551983, and this is where they tell the story of what may be the ghost of a young girl. We can assume that this happened recently, as they talk about finding an old Polaroid camera in one of the rooms. While investigating an abandoned house, they found an old Polaroid camera and took a picture of an old rocking chair that was in the room that they were in. When they looked at the photo that they had just taken, there was an image of a little girl sitting in the rocking chair. They returned to the room to see if there was anyone there, but there was no one there. They then took another photo, but the girl was gone, so they tried to use the camera to communicate with her. They asked her questions, but she refused to answer. Then they asked her to do something, anything to let them know that she was there, but nothing happened. After that, they left the room and decided to look elsewhere in the house. But as they were leaving, they could have sworn they heard the sound of a rocking chair moving back and forth. Just then, one of the investigators stopped and turned back to the door. Behind him, they saw the door open slightly and close slowly. When they opened the door, they saw that the rocking chair was now facing the opposite direction. Our next story comes from user Jessica2227, and this is where they tell the story of a ghost hunter getting a message from the beyond. During a recent ghost hunt at Waverly Hills Sanatorium, I brought my spirit box to hopefully make contact with one of the many spirits rumored to roam its halls. I must admit I was skeptical but excited nonetheless. As I tuned through the frequencies, suddenly a voice crackled through the box. Although it was faint, it was clear. "My name is Jessica." I froze as I realized the spirit box had just uttered my name. I continued to tune it to try to make sure I heard correctly. I wasn't alone. There were others with me on this ghost hunt, and none of us had ever heard that name spoken out loud in this manner. "Jessica B, are you here?" A chill ran down my spine. My full name. How did the spirit box know my full name? I replied hesitantly. "Yes, I'm here. If you're trying to contact me, please say yes." The voice spoke again. "Yes, Jessica B." I felt a sudden surge of goosebumps. Was this really happening? Could there be a spirit in this room trying to connect with me? I gathered my courage. "Who are you?" The voice whispered. "My time is up." A wave of sadness washed over me. I sensed urgency in its voice. "Are you in danger?" The voice seemed to grow weaker. "No time left. Help." Then silence. The spirit box went dead. The voice was gone. I sat there stunned, processing what had just transpired. Had I truly received a message from beyond the grave? Our next story comes from user May 22nd, the paranormal, and this is where they tell the story of a child's toy truck seen moving by itself in one of the sanatorium's rooms. While investigating Waverly Hills Sanatorium, the team was split up into two groups, each exploring different parts of the abandoned facility. The first group entered a room where they saw a small child's toy truck sitting in the corner. Suddenly, the truck moved by itself. Startled, they watched as it began to roll across the floor towards them. As it approached, they noticed that there were no strings attached, and it was moving under its own power. Just as quickly as it started moving, the truck came to a halt, turning towards the wall as if it had hit an invisible barrier. Then it started moving backwards, returning to its original position in the corner of the room. Meanwhile, the other group was investigating a nearby room when they heard strange footsteps coming from inside. As they approached the door, the footsteps became louder and more distinct, resembling the sound of someone dragging themselves along the floor. When they opened the door, they found the source of the noise, a wheelchair moving by itself. It appeared to be stuck on the carpet, but it was somehow moving without anyone in it. The team members tried to interact with the wheelchair, asking questions and trying to make contact with whoever was responsible for moving it. But there was no response. After a few moments, the wheelchair came to a stop and the team decided to move on, leaving the room and the mysterious wheelchair behind. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out my podcast, where I talk about these type of things every single day. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.